Hi, this is Stacy, and tonight I'm going to be talking about my third week on the popular dating website Plenty of Fish. So let's get started. Okay, so last week I had mentioned that I was going to be meeting with two POF users. The first one we were going to meet up and get dinner, and the second one we were going to meet up after work to grab drinks and appetizers. So the first date that I want to talk about is my date with a guy named Alex, who I forgot his username, but I met up with him in Santa Barbara after work to get drinks and appetizers. So before I discuss the details of our date, I just want to show you his profile, and that way you kind of get an idea of what this guy looked like and just more about him and his personality. So let me just Okay, so that was Alex's profile, and as you can see, he seems like a normalish guy, given the information that he chose to share online. So, our date. Okay, well, first off, we hadn't really picked out a specific date and time to meet. We had been texting back and forth, trying to figure out what would work best with our schedules. Like, oh, hey, can you meet on this day? No? Okay, can you meet on this day? And finally, we had settled on Thursday, but unfortunately, I found out during my lunch break on Thursday that we were going to be meeting like that day. So if I had been given an earlier notice, then I would have brought a change of clothes with me so I didn't have to show up, on my date in my work clothes, which, isn't bad. It's not like I work at McDonald's and I'm coming back from, frying hamburgers or french fries or whatever. But I still wanted to look more like me and not like professional me, if that makes any sense at all. So we met Thursday at this place in Santa Barbara called Arch Rock. I think it's called Arch Rock. And it's cool. It's like a little hip bar dining place, kind of small. So on my way to the date, I was feeling, a little nervous, which I guess is common, typical when you're meeting someone new. And I left work on time. Traffic was no problem at all. And found a parking garage, parked my car, and was gathering my stuff. And as I got out of the car, I had accidentally hit the lock switch with my elbow. And when I closed the door, I had just realized that I locked everything, including my car keys, my phone, my purse, in the car. So that happened 10 minutes before the date. And as you can imagine, I was panicking. So I don't know anyone else who has locked their car keys in their car 10 minutes before they're supposed to meet someone for a first date. I guess that kind of thing only happens to someone like me. So, going on with the story, I found a parking attendant and he was able to call someone to help me get my keys out of my car. And they have like a service in the parking garage, so it literally took them like 10, maybe no more than 15 minutes to get there and get my keys out. And so as soon as I was able to get back in my car, I immediately called Alex because, I didn't think he would still be there. Honestly, if I were in that situation or if I were in his shoes, I probably would have left. I would have thought, oh, my date stood me up, what a flake. But fortunately, when I called him, he was still there, and I explained what had happened, and he just, laughed it off and said, oh, no worries, like, I'm here. So, yeah, just get here as soon as you can. Okay, so after that mishap, before the date, once I actually meet him and our date gets started, I guess you could say, he he's an interesting guy, and usually when I say interesting, I mean it like in a bad way because I don't want to offend anybody. But I, in the sense, he actually was like an interesting guy. Um, I don't even know how to describe him. He is definitely not what I expected. Um, he's I don't even know what to say. Um, okay, well, I guess I'll start with he works in Santa Barbara for this company that deals with, I think it's like investments or securities. It's something financial. I don't remember exactly what he said because it's a lot of financial stuff that I really don't understand. But he deals with securities or retirement funds, something that involves a lot of money. So, that was kind of impressive. And he is actually from the Torrance area, but he went to Sisaki, also known as Cal State Channel Islands, and then from Channel Islands decided to move to Santa Barbara, where he is currently residing now. So he likes surfing, he's just getting into running, he likes shooting, like going to a shooting range, and like does hunting, I guess, with his family, and goes camping. I don't know, just a lot of hobbies that I don't really have. But he also has like climbed a mountain and has done triathlons. He's a very active, adventurous person. That's a good way to describe him. Very active, adventurous, spontaneous. Pretty much what he had listed on his profile, it actually matched what he was like in person or when we talked. So I was pretty happy about that he was honest and everything seemed to match up. The one thing that kind of irked me just a little bit during the date was that he had his phone out and was texting pretty much like the whole time. I understand there was a football game on. I really don't care about football, but he was telling me that he was in a fantasy league team or something with fantasy league, and he had a pool of money that he had been participating in, so it was important for him to keep tabs on the game, and he was definitely not, shy about being interested in the game. There were a few times where he'd ask me a question, and then I'd, be talking or giving him an answer to the question, and then he'd say, "Oh, wait, hold on a sec," and then they'd score a touchdown, and he started cheering with the other people at the bar, and it's just like, okay, all right, like, are you here for the game, or are you here for me? It was kind of hard to distinguish that sometimes during the date, or at least at that specific time, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but this is like a big deal, and there's like a lot of money that I put into this," and his phone just kept going off every time. But if it wasn't about the game, then it was about the date with me. Like, some of his friends were asking, "Oh, how's it going, and can you send me a picture?" Which is kind of awkward because he's telling me everything that his friends are saying, or some of the things that his friends were saying. He wouldn't tell me some of the other things, which I don't want to really know what was being said. But that was something that kind of bothered me because I'm definitely not used to someone texting during a date, at least so blatantly and so frequently. So I was kind of being playful about it and giving him a hard time. But, he, aside from that, I thought he was, kind of cute. He's kind of dorky, not because he's wearing glasses or anything, but just some of his mannerisms and some of the stuff that he was talking about. I was just like, oh, he's kind of a dork, which he even admitted himself, but I'm also a dork too, so guess we're a perfect match. But after we had, finished at the restaurant, we went for a walk on State Street, and we didn't really know where we were going, but we just walked around. And Thursday's like college night, so there are like a lot of bars, clubs, a lot of people out and about. But we went to Blenders, which is the smoothie place, and he wanted to get a smoothie, so we went there and walked around a little bit more. And then we passed by Vans, and it was just about to close, but we went inside anyway because he said he needed some new shoes, which I didn't think a date was the time to get new shoes as much as I love shoe shopping, but for a guy to suggest that we go shoe shopping on a date just seems a little foreign to me. But we went inside Vans and he tried on shoes and was definitely fascinated with the little sock liners, like the little, I guess you can describe them as like pantyhose socks. He had never seen them before and he was just having a ball with them. He like even took some home because he couldn't believe that they existed and he really wanted to show his roommate. But yeah, he bought shoes on our date. So after we had finished picking out a pair of shoes, we walked around a little bit more, and of course he invited me back to his place to watch TV. He did make a point of saying that, you know, he really actually just wanted to watch TV and just like hang out and have a place to talk. But usually when someone suggests that you go back to their place, like on a first date especially, it definitely means something else. So I didn't accept his invitation. If you're thinking I did, well, shame on you. But I'm not a slore, so I didn't go back to his place. I just said, well, I want to go home, like I'm kind of tired and I have work tomorrow as well as you. So we walked back to the parking garage and we both acknowledged that it was very awkward. It's always awkward to say goodbye to someone on a first date, especially with someone that you met via online on a dating website. So we don't really know how to say goodbye to each other. But he wanted to walk me to my car, and he was parked like on the third level. I was parked on the first level. I told him I could easily walk to my car, but he said, you know, I can drive you there and we can like talk in the car. And because, you know, I was having a good time with him, even though this was like the most random, spontaneous date I've kind of been on in a while, I went with him to his car and we just talked and we didn't really know how to say goodbye. So we spent like 20-30 minutes just talking and it's kind of like, all right, well, yeah, like, how do you want to say goodbye? He's kind of shy. Like, he didn't try to make a move or anything on me. Like, he definitely, like, we didn't touch at all during the date. Like, there was no hand holding. There was no, like, arm around the shoulder. He's, you know, he was very respectful in that way, which I appreciate. But as we eventually said goodbye, he said, you know, I had a really great time, and if you ever want to hang out after work, you know, just let me know. Like, I'd love to see you again. So I said pretty much the same thing. Like, I had a good time, and yeah, like, I might take you up on that offer. So that's kind of the way things ended. He like texted me when I got home and just said, oh, have a safe drive, like, had a good time. And I just said, yeah, you know, me too. And I honestly did have a good time, even though, you know, it wasn't like my ideal picture perfect date. I'm glad I went because he's like a cool guy and I definitely do want to see him again. So, you know, it's shocking for me to say this, but I'm actually pleased. And who would have thought POF could have produced like a real, normal, like, fun guy for me to go out with. So we have discussed meeting up again next week. It just depends, you know, on our schedule. So I hope we do meet next week because I definitely like to hang out with him again. And I mean, who knows what could happen? We might go shoe shopping, or we might go shopping for, I don't know, pants or something this time. But I like a guy who goes shopping or likes shopping. That's definitely a nice trait to have. Just kidding. But yeah, that was my date with Alex. Okay, so before I talk about my next date, which was with Juggler 123, whose name is actually Brent. So before I talk about the details of my date with Brent, let me just show you his profile and other information about him. So let's take a look. Okay, so now that you've seen Brent's profile and other important information, now I can talk about our date. So we met Saturday night at the Watermark restaurant and W2 Lounge in downtown Ventura, which is like this hip, upscale dining experience. It's a really cool layout. Like the first floor is for more formal dining, and then the third floor is actually where they have like a lounge, kind of clubbish atmosphere. So we actually met on the third floor, and I had gotten there a little early. I wanted to make sure I got a spot because it's Saturday night and a place is filled with cougars, so you have to make sure you get, a seat. So I was there a little early, but once he arrived, like I thought he would have to call me and ask me like, oh, hey, where are you? But he found me and I saw him, and I don't know if it's just because I am kind of more attracted to Alex, especially after, our date, that maybe I was kind of favoring Alex a little bit more than Brent. But I mean, Brent wasn't bad looking. I don't know. I think he looks better with his glasses because I don't know. I guess Alex is better looking. Oh gosh, I really sound like a shallow whore. So once the date actually started, everything, was going well. He's a nice guy, respectable. At least during the dinner portion, everything had been going well. Let me rephrase that. So during dinner, everything was good. Delicious food. I had like this amazing pomegranate martini. It was, quite delicious. And, it's just kind of normal exchange conversation. And after we had finished, he suggested that we walk downtown. So I said, sure, why not? And we left the restaurant and decided to walk around a bit. And when we left, he said, oh, well, why don't I escort you? And kind of like extended his hand out, like he wanted me to hold his hand. So I was like, oh, that's cute. And we were like holding hands, which is kind of weird at first because I feel like you do the hand holding, or the hand holding stage is more incorporated when you're more of an item, or there've been like a few more dates, not really on the first date. But I mean, what do I know? So we're holding hands, walking downtown, and then we decide to walk by the pier, which was great in heels, by the way. Yeah, my calves got a lovely workout that night. But we walked around and, just had like okay conversations. Then we walked back near the restaurant, and he still wanted to hang out and suggested like maybe we see a movie, which I don't really do movies on a first date, but there's not really much else to do in Ventura except like go downtown, go to bars, like go out to eat, or go to the cheap theater and see a movie. So we went to the theater and we saw Spider-Man 2, which I haven't seen, so I was glad I actually like got to see a good movie. But yeah, I mean, I think if we had just gone out to dinner and then left it at that, I probably would have had a better experience. But the walking and the movie kind of just prolonged the date, and the longer the date was, the more I could see that I really didn't want to hang out with him again, because I mean, he's a nice guy. You know, he wasn't creepy he didn't have like creepy stalkerish tendencies, but he's very like touchy-feely, and like I felt like he always had to hold my hand. So even as we were crossing the street and I had to like, you know, pull away to press the button, like as soon as I walked back, he like, you know, would grab my hand immediately. Like, you're not going anywhere, like you're all mine. And I don't know, I didn't really like that. But yeah, I think if the date had been shorter, it definitely would have been a greater advantage for him. I also noticed that he like hummed a lot. Like, he was humming during dinner and even as we were walking, and that just annoyed the shit out of me. Like, I didn't even recognize the tune, whatever he was humming, but it was just so random, and I was just like, shut up, like, I don't want to hear you humming, like, it's weird, like, stop it. And that's not a good sign. But then we went to the movie theater and we saw The Amazing Spider-Man. I think I said it was Spider-Man 2, but that's a different movie. I'm not really up with movies nowadays. So we actually saw The Amazing Spider-Man, not Spider-Man 2, for those who are like hardcore fans. And he bought me popcorn, so that was cool. I was kind of hungry because we just had like drinks, or I had a drink, and you know, some light appetizers. So it was definitely time for popcorn. And we're waiting for the movie, and he was still like touchy-feely again, and you know, had like his arm around me. And I think that would have been nice if I was with someone who I was more like attracted to. I would have allowed that to happen, but it just kind of made me cringe. And I don't know if he could read my body language. I guess obviously he couldn't, because if he had noticed that I was uncomfortable, he probably would have like kept his hands to himself. But yeah, he didn't notice, so I just kind of felt like he's just very possessive and kind of aggressive in that area. So we're watching the movie. I was really tired, it was late, and I just wanted to go to sleep, so I kind of took like a little nap, which is definitely something that you do not do during a date unless you want to purposely insult your date. But he didn't notice, and in fact he insisted that I use his shoulder as a pillow. Like, literally insisted. Like, he had his hand to my head and was just like, oh, lay down. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, I actually woke up during my little nap during the movie because I heard him humming again, and that annoyed the crap out of me. How could you sleep through that? So I watched the movie, focused on that, and one thing that he did during the movie, which kind of just blows my mind, is that, you know, besides having at least one hand like on my thigh, and we're not talking about like by the knee, I'm talking about like upper thigh. It's just kind of like, whoa, like, you know, don't even think about it. He wanted me to hold his hand and just kind of like extended his hand out again, like on my thigh, like, give me your hand, like I want to hold something. And me being fed up at this point, I wasn't really interested, so I just, you know, kind of crossed my arms like this. So I think he kind of got the hint. But then, you know, as I was starting to doze off again, he grabbed my hand, and when I noticed what was going on, I just kind of made a fist. Like, I was trying really hard to give him subtle hints that I didn't want to hold his hand, and that I just was kind of over it at this point, but he didn't really pick up on those hints, so I guess I was just kind of being a bitch, and he didn't really realize that I was being a bitch on purpose. But, yeah, so after the movie had ended, I was relieved, because I was like, oh, I can go home, like, I'm really tired, I just want to go home and sleep, like, just get me out of here. And we walk back, and of course, you know, it's that awkward goodbye at the end of the date, and I tell him, oh, you don't need to walk me to my car because it's literally right there. He's like, oh no, that's what a gentleman does. I'm like, no, like, there's no need for that. My car's right there, like, just let me walk to my fucking car. And we stop at his car because it's closest to us, and I'm just like, oh, you know, I was polite, and I said, you know, thank you for dinner and everything. I had, you know, a nice time, because which was kind of true. At first it was nice, but then after dinner it just kind of went downhill. But the first part was nice, so I didn't really lie like fully about that. But I said, thank you for paying and everything, and I hope you have a safe drive, just common courtesy things to say to your date. And I was only planning on giving him a hug, like that was it. And so I, reached over to give him a hug, and as I did that, he had his face kind of turning like this, like with his cheek kind of showing. And I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I was more like that, just giving him a hug, like, I don't want to kiss you. Like, I made it kind of obvious that I wasn't planning on kissing him and that he was not going to kiss me either. But after I gave him a hug, he was like still holding on to me and said, "Oh, don't I get a goodnight kiss?" I'm just like, excuse me? Like, fuck no, you're not getting a goodnight kiss. But I didn't say that. I said, no, you get a goodnight hug. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll take it. Which, I mean, yeah, of course you're going to take it. Like, that's all you're getting. But it was kind of funny because other people that were still in the parking lot that were saying, goodbye to their dates or getting in their car, they saw what was going on, and like he had his back face to one couple, and when I gave him a hug and he said, whatever about the kiss, I guess I made like this, bad face. Like, I'm not very good at hiding my facial expressions, especially when I don't like something, and this other guy saw me like make, a bad face. I probably did something like this, but yeah, he was laughing. He knew I was uncomfortable, but unfortunately my date didn't know that I was uncomfortable. So after I was able to pull away, after giving him a hug, I went back to my car and just went home. I didn't text him or anything, and luckily he didn't text me at night because it was already late, so I'm sure he was like half asleep driving. And this morning I woke up and he texted me like, oh, hope you like slept in a little bit and have a good night, or have a good run. And I still haven't texted him back, which is really bad because, I guess the decent thing to do would be to text him back and either say, yeah, so we should meet again, or, I had a really good time, but I don't think we should see each other again, or, something a little bit nicer than that. But I just don't feel like talking to him right now, and I don't know what to say. And I'm a little disappointed because initially, before meeting up with him and with Alex, I thought that I would actually have greater compatibility with him over Alex because we had communicated for a longer amount of time and we seemed to have a little bit more in common. But the state definitely made it, very evident that we probably shouldn't see each other again, and that I think he's kind of annoying, and that I can't really stand to be around him again. So, yeah, to sum it all up, my date with Alex was good, but my date with Brent was not so good. Next week, I'm actually going to be posting my final video about my experience on POF, so you definitely want to stay tuned to that. But also next week I'm planning on meeting up with Alex, so I'm hoping that happens, and if that happens, then I'll have another exciting story to tell in next week's segment. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great night, and yeah, that's it. See you next week.